does simple interest show proportional reasoning and relate to the percent equation? Think about this question during the lesson. Victoria opens a savings account with a deposit of $300. She will earn 1.6% simple interest on her money each year. How can she estimate how much interest she will earn after 5 years, assuming she does not add or take out any money? The initial amount of money Victoria has in her account is called the principal. Interest that is applied to the initial amount only is called simple interest. Does Victoria earn the same amount of interest every year? Yes, Victoria earns the same amount of interest every year. The account earns simple interest, which is always based on the initial amount. Step 1. Use the percent equation to find the amount of interest earned in 1 year, S. Part is equal to percent times whole. In this situation, the part is the interest amount, the percent is the interest rate, and the whole is the principal. An interest rate is a percent similar to percent increase. It tells you how much interest you will earn as a percent of your principal. So, let's substitute our values from the problem into this equation. We should use S to represent the interest earned, and the principal was $300. Finally, substitute the interest rate. Why are we substituting 16 thousandths for the interest rate? The decimal 0.016 is equivalent to 1.6%. The decimal point in 1.6% was moved 2 places left. So, the simple interest earned on the principal each year is $4.80. Step 2. Multiply the interest earned in 1 year by 5 to calculate the total interest Victoria will earn over 5 years, I. I equals 24, so Victoria will earn $24 in interest over 5 years. The formula I equals P times R times T can be used to calculate the total interest, I, where P represents principal, R represents rate, and T represents time. Now you can use proportional reasoning and the percent equation to also solve simple interest problems.
Victoria has another account at the bank that pays 2.5% simple interest. How much interest will she earn in 8 years on an initial deposit of $250, assuming she neither adds to nor withdraws from the account?
First, we have to take the 2.5% interest and express it as a decimal. So we have 2.5 is 2.5. So that is going to be our interest as a decimal. But first, we have to take the decimal and move it to the left 2 spaces, 1, 2. And so our new decimal that still represents the 2.5% is 0.025. So now we are going to follow the steps. So the S is for the interest amount and is equal to the percent of simple interest. That is 0.025 times the $250 of her initial deposit. And then when we multiply the simple interest times the initial deposit, we're going to get $6. $6.25, and then that's just interest after the first year. The interest over 8 years, you would take that $6.25 and you would multiply it by 8. Because we've already identified what it is for 1, we just take that same amount, multiply it by 8. And then we get $50 interest over 8 years. Now this is just for the interest. So her interest amount earned will be $50 after the 8 years of this account.
Maya's older sister got a loan to buy a used car for $3,400. What is the interest rate on the loan?
One way is use the percent equation to find the interest rate. So the interest amount equal to the interest rate times the loan amount is the percent equation. Then we take the interest amount, which was $102, and they got $102 by taking the 12 months of a year and multiplying that by $8.50, because the $8.50 based on the picture on the flyer that's the interest for 1 year. So that's how they got the $102. Now we take the loan amount, which is $3,400. Again, we got that from the problem and the flyer, and then we have to multiply that times the interest rate, but we're solving for that, so we're going to divide both sides by 3,400, and they cancel out on the right side of the equation, and then on the left side we divide 102 and 3,400, and that gives us 0 3/100 as the interest amount. So now that we have the interest amount, the interest rate, we are now able to say that the interest rate, because if we move this decimal 2 places to the right, it gives us a percent. It would be 3% for 1 year. Another way would be to apply the formula I is equal to PRT to solve for the simple interest rate for the 1 year. So the I is still going to be represented by the interest amount, and so that's still 102. The PRT, the P is $3,400, and the R, we still don't know what that is going to equal yet, and then 1 is the year, the 1 year, the time. And so we multiply it out. The 1 actually in this case gets absorbed into the 3,400 because it's multiplying by 1, and then it goes back to dividing both sides by 3,400, and we get the same answer. So in both instances we are still getting the 3% for 1 year. So this is just another way and another formula, if you will, or expression.
Another company will lend Maya's older sister $4,000. Every month, she will pay $11.88 in interest. What is the interest rate rounded to the nearest 1/10% for 1 year?
All right, so we know the formula or percent equation is interest amount is equal to interest rate times loan amount. All right, so we start out with that. Now we just substitute everything. So the interest amount, it tells us in the problem, the interest amount is $11.88 every month. Well, we want to know for 1 year based on the question. So we're going to take the $11.88 and multiply that by 12. And that will equal $142.56. 56 cents. And so that's the interest amount for a year. The interest rate, we don't know what that is. And the loan amount is $4,000. Now we're going to solve for the interest rate by dividing 4,000 on both sides of the equation. We have that R on one side, and then the $142.56 divided by the 4,000 is going to equal 0.03564, and that's our interest rate. However, it says round to the nearest tenth. So our tenths place is, hold on, we have to change this to a percent because it says nearest 10th percent. So we move it to the right 2 places. So our percent is 3.564, but then we have to round to the nearest 10th percent. So we look here, that's our 10th percent. Look next door, that's a 6. So our percent or rate is 3.6%. That's it.
Jake opened a savings account that earns 1 5/10% interest. Jake estimates that, assuming he neither adds to or withdraws from his account, he will earn $240 in interest after 10 years. How much did Jake deposit when he opened the account?
First, find the amount of interest for 1 year. So they created this number line here for years and interest for each year. There is $24 for the first year, and they did that by taking the $240 and dividing it by the 10 years. So that gave us $24 per year. Then they took the percent equation, and we have the amount of interest rate times the initial deposit, and then we have amount of interest is $24. The interest rate is 1.5%. They made it a decimal at 0.015 times P, which is the initial deposit that we're solving for. So then we have to divide by both sides the interest rate, and we get 1,600. So Jake initially deposited $1,600.
Caitlin's older brother borrowed money for school. He took out a loan that charges 6% simple interest. He will end up paying $720 in interest after 6 years. How much did Caitlin's brother borrow for school?
Let's start with our equation or percent equation. We have interest amount. Always start with that. Interest amount is equal to interest rate. Interest rate times initial deposit. Okay, excuse this handwriting. Writing on the computer screen is not the easiest with this. All right, so we have our interest amount at, let's see, $720 interest after 6 years. So our interest amount over the time of 6 years, we want to know for 1 year. So we have the interest amount 720, divide that by 6 years. We will get 720 divided by 6 is going to give us 120. So our interest amount would be $120. Our interest rate we have at 6% simple interest. So that represented as a decimal is 0.06. And that's times our initial deposit, which we do not know yet. So now we're going to solve for P, and we're going to divide by that simple interest, by the interest rate on both sides of the equation. It cancels out here, left with P, and then we have 120 divided by the 6%, and we have $2,000 as the initial deposit. That's what we were solving for. So the initial deposit is $2,000. That's what he borrowed.